U.S. President Donald Trump says he is keeping radical Islamic terrorists out and keeping America safe. Critics say he is trampling on the U.S. tradition of welcoming immigrants. Friday, Mr. Trump signed a sweeping order barring people from 7 predominantly Muslim nations from entering the U.S. for 3 months. Those countries, you see them there: Libya, Sudan, Somalia, Yemen, Syria, Iraq, and Iran. The order also suspends the U.S. refugee admissions program for 120 days. That's 4 months. The Syrian refugees are barred from the U.S. indefinitely. Also, people holding certain visas will now have to undergo in-person interviews in order to renew their visas. All right, Jim Acosta is joining us now, senior White House correspondent. Jim, Donald Trump campaigned on controlling borders and a tougher vetting of people coming into the U.S. He's delivering on that promise.
That's right, Cyril, he is. But make no mistake, these are some very sweeping actions coming from the new president. He signed this executive order earlier in the day over at the Pentagon. We just got our hands on the executive order. This is it right here. But the actions are fairly dramatic. He's talking about suspending visas for people coming into the United States from 7 countries that have links to terrorism. Iran, Iraq, Syria, the Sudan, Somalia are among those 7 countries. Those visas have been suspended for 90 days as part of this action. They're also implementing what they're referring to as extreme vetting methods for people coming into the United States from terror-prone parts of the world. That would include biometric scanning, a more lengthy interview process. It's going to be a much more draconian step that's being taken here as part of that extreme vetting process. And then I think the part that is really going to send shockwaves around the world, and that is the suspension of the U.S. refugee program. This is for political refugees, religious refugees coming into the United States. That program is suspended for 120 days while they get these new measures up and running. And permanently ended by the Trump administration is the Syrian refugee program, which was bringing in people from that part of the world under the Obama administration. That program now ends, and so you will not have Syrian refugees coming into this country as part of this executive order. So it is a very sweeping decision coming from the president.
Jim, you mentioned religious refugees. During the campaign, Donald Trump raised a lot of eyebrows and got a lot of criticism for advocating a ban on Muslims entering the U.S. To what extent is this executive order a Muslim ban?
Well, all of the countries listed in that temporary ban on those visas coming into the country for 90 days, those are all Muslim majority countries. And so you have critics already coming out and making statements about this. Senator Kamala Harris from California, she's a brand new senator, but she's been talked about as a potential 2020 candidate in the next election. If you can believe it, we're still talking about that, even though Donald Trump has just entered the White House. But she said, make no mistake, in a statement tonight, this is a Muslim ban. The Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer put out a statement saying that there are tears rolling down the cheeks of the Statue of Liberty. So Democrats are really up in arms about this. But as you said, this is something President Trump campaigned on repeatedly throughout the election. He is delivering on that promise. But we're going to have to find out what the details are in the coming days. The White House issued this executive order, put out this paper statement to everybody detailing somewhat what is in here, but there's still lots of open-ended questions. The White House did not sit down with reporters and give us a briefing. That is something you would have seen in the previous administration. We did not get that today. So lots of questions about what the president decided to do with this executive order, Cyril.
And look, Jim, just before I let you go, to be clear, different categories of immigrants, refugees are barred from entering the U.S. for different periods of time while procedures are reviewed. That's what it says in the executive order. Is it possible in your mind that, you know, in 2, 3, 4 months, things will be back to business as usual once that review is complete?
It's possible. It is possible. We just don't know at this point. And one thing that we should point out about this 90-day suspension of visas coming in from 7 countries that have ties to terrorism, those 7 countries may not be all of them. We've been talking to White House officials this evening who said that there may be more countries added to this list. And so make no mistake, this is a very aggressive action that's being taken by the Trump administration. They talk at length during this executive order, at the top of this executive order, about 9/11, something that occurred 16 years ago. And so President Trump campaigned during that election cycle as someone who was going to crack down and ramp up the war on terrorism, the war on ISIS. And this is just the beginning of that process, I think.
All right, Jim Acosta, senior White House correspondent, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.